News Talk KVNU will bring you the complete coverage of General Conference for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The conference sessions will air Saturday from 10 till 12, 2 till 4, and 6 till 8. Also Sunday from 10 till 12 and 2 till 4. Listen live at 102 FM, 610 AM, and online at kvnutalk.com. Also on the KVNU mobile app. General Conference is provided as a public service of News Talk KVNU, the voice of Northern Utah.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
Good morning and welcome to the Garden Guide. This is Mark Anderson with Anderson Seed and Garden, and we are here to answer your questions and hopefully just kind of get excited about spring. So we've got some great weather. We had some rain this week, got a little bit more in the forecast, so it's a great weekend to get outside and do some planting. I even had my garden tilled this week. It finally dried out enough and it thawed enough that we could get the tiller through the garden and get that tilled up and ready to go. So we actually tilled in the fall and worked a lot of organic matter in there. We put some compost out there. We had a bunch of leaves and grass clippings and zeolite and all kinds of stuff out there and worked that in. But I was out there doing it in the dark with my headlamp on with my with my BCS tiller.
The neighbors just looked at it and that's just Mark.
Yeah, it's just Mark out there being crazy. I got home and it was late and it was gonna like snow after that, and I was just like, I got to do it. I just got to get out there and do it. And so,
and the rain was nice Thursday morning.
Yeah, that was really nice. But we had our good friend Marlon come and till the garden this. I was actually last Saturday, and he's got a great big tractor and just kind of worked all that stuff in from the fall that I couldn't quite get completely incorporated. I mean, I got it worked in, but it just didn't do as well. You know, a 30-inch BCS tiller does a great job, but you know. What, a 5-foot tractor, you know.
It's always good to have a friend with a tractor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, works a lot better. So I'm excited to get out there and do some planting. I was hoping to do it a little bit earlier this week, but between a couple commitments and the weather, this weekend looks like it. So peas, spinach, lettuce, radishes, onions, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, kale, those can all go in right now. We're going to get our peas and spinach in this weekend for sure. So conference weekend doesn't get any better. For planting peas.
And last weekend, of course, we had, yesterday was April Fool's Day.
Yes.
But last weekend we had Fool's Spring, where it got up to 75.
Oh yeah, which was crazy. But those extremes always follow each other. So we had single digits the week before, and then 70 degrees, and then we're kind of back
and
to
in the 50s. So.
Yeah, back to normal again. So that's
back to reality.
That's quite all right. Yeah, quite all right. But usually around conference, we usually recommend that it's time to start pruning your roses. So we are into April, and usually after that first weekend in April, we start saying, hey, you can start cleaning up the roses, get the mulch off of those, and do a little bit of pruning and get things going. So that's a good time to get out there and do that. Bare root sale going on at Anderson still. We've got pretty good selection of fruit trees left. I have 350 more various trees coming probably Monday. I was thinking they might show up yesterday, but they didn't. So we're thinking they'll probably show up on Monday, and we'll get those ready to go. And I've got some more peaches. I've got some more apricots. I've got more varieties of apples and pears and a few cherries. So we'll be ready to go again. But right now we have raspberries. We have strawberries. We just got a new batch of asparagus in yesterday. All of our onions, they came in yesterday as well too, but they will probably as busy as it was yesterday and probably today. They'll probably be gone by Monday or Tuesday again. So it's better.
Come in and get them while you have them.
Yeah, it's better to get them while they're fresh instead of them sitting around for a week and a half waiting for somebody to come get them. So I've been ordering the normal amount, but with the great weather, everybody's just been coming in and snatching those onion plants up. Potatoes are in. Blueberries came. Grapes came the other day. So we just have a little bit of everything for spring. So all kinds of fun. And we do have a special guest on the show today. So from Agrono-Tec Seed, we have Doug Washburn. Doug, thanks for joining us on the show.
Good morning. Good to visit with you from a distance.
Hey, that's all right. We love having you in studio with us, but there's sometimes you just gotta call in. So we're just glad you could join us this morning and share some knowledge and some ideas with us for working on your lawn this year. So any
I miss you in the person, and we'll try this out and hopefully do it some more.
Hey, that works great, Doug. Any big events in the grass seed venue, other than prices up and availability is down? So
yes, the suggestion by people in the Oregon-Idaho area is that between about Memorial Day until Labor Day, things will be a little bit tight. So if you're anticipating a project, the suggestion is buy now, stock it up, and get it on the garage shelf and have it there when you're ready to use it.
Ready to go, and that's because of the heat and the dry conditions last year. Just not as good a crop as usual.
That's the verdict. Is that most of the grass seed production is produced under natural precipitation conditions. They don't have a lot of pivots and stuff, so they rely very heavily upon Mother Nature, and she didn't produce rain when they needed it, and the seed heads that were produced, a lot of them were just shallow and vacant, and when they went to combine and stuff, it just shattered and flew in the wind.
Yeah.
So that seed that was produced was about half the crop, and so put everybody in a panic. Of course, prices rose, and there's some real shortages out there. But again, for those people looking at installing a lawn or wanting to spruce up their lawns with some overseeding, which is a good practice, go into Anderson's as soon as you can and get what you need and take it home and have it there when you're ready to do it.
Yeah, and we tried to anticipate this because we saw weather conditions last year, so we stocked up last fall and then put a big order in for this spring to try and help with that particular problem. So we are well stocked on grass seed right now, so we're ready for the season and excited for some great weather. And things are warming up here in Cache Valley. We don't have any leaves on the trees yet, but things are warming up, soil's warming up, and it looks like a great time to get out there and do some spring planting. So any suggestions?
It's a great time to prune that grass.
Any suggestions for early season overseeding, Doug? I know we've got a lot of customers that are talking about that, trying to fill in some spots, maybe fill in some spots that have gone a little sparse underneath their trees. Any good suggestions for that?
Well, this is the great opportunity, great time to do it. In order for seed to germinate, it needs a little bit of moisture, good soil temperatures, anything above 45 degrees. Seed will start to germinate. This is traditionally a time when people will get out their aerifiers or have an aerification service, put some holes in their lawn, and that's a great time to put some new cultivars, new varieties of grass in those holes. So aerification is a very essential part of good turf management. And but when you do that, you do create a bit of a void, and so you need to fill that void with some new seed. And these newer cultivars are just more drought tolerant and darker, greener, and just a much prettier lawn. I hear it over and over again that people who overseed their lawns, the following year, their lawns will green up sooner, and they'll be the darkest, greenest lawn in the neighborhood. And I was with a client the other day who did his own home lawn, and up there near Nordic Valley, Liberty area, just over the hill to the south of you, and he's not letting the secret out. I told him he better let the secret out, but the neighbors are just oohing and ahhing about his beautiful lawn, and he says, I'm not going to tell him that I overseeded. I said, I hope you do.
Hey, so, so 2 summers ago, we had a section of our lawn that my wife decided to kill out, and we replanted, and I did a blend of our Anderson Select, which is a 5-way bluegrass, and your Everest turf type rye blend. And so I mixed those together. So I kind of did my own mix, and we planted that. And I'll tell you what, it's greened up faster than the rest of my lawn. So I can see a distinct line right where we had killed and planted that. So it's greening up. It looks gorgeous. It's come through the winter amazingly well. I'm ready to kill out a couple other sections of our straight bluegrass and put that in, because it used about 30 to 40% less water last year to stay just as green or greener than the rest of my lawn. So it was quite dramatic what a difference that made. Less water, stayed greener, didn't have any problems. It came up so quick. I mean, it looks gorgeous, and we're very excited about a lot of the new mixes that are out there that can really cut back our water usage. I had a customer in yesterday, and he'd done pretty much the same thing, and he was on restrictions last year. He only was able to water once a week. And we had put a new variety of grass in there that's a little more drought tolerant, and then he used some hydrotane on there as well too throughout the hot, dry part of the summer. And he said, aside from a couple spots that kind of browned a little bit, he said his lawn looked as good last year as it did the year before. So, yeah, makes a difference.
It is time that we assess what we've done on a traditional basis, and with population increases and the lack of snow and thus water, we need to, but we don't need to go without. We don't need to amputate the arm because we have a scratch on it, and we need to strongly consider alternative grasses that can provide recreational function and beauty, erosion control, cool the environment, and provide us some great oxygen. And but we don't need to push the pendulum so far that we're into the West Desert look.
Yes.
And we can have our cake and eat it too. We may just have to change the cake a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah. I got to change the recipe a little bit, but I feel the same way. And grass has so many great advantages to it, and sometimes it gets a bad rap. So grass is still green when it comes to environmentally conscious usage. We just got to use different varieties. We don't have to use as much water, but the amount of dust that it traps, the way it filters water so water's not running down the street somewhere, I mean, it really has some amazing advantages other than just creating oxygen and green and cooling things down. Having a turf really does help considerably. So, hey, Doug, we've got a caller on the line, so we're going to go to that call. And anyone that would like to join us here on the Garden Guide, we've got Doug Washburn with Agrono-Tec Seed. We're talking grass seed. We're talking about how to improve your lawn, how to incorporate some new grasses into your lawn. So we're talking grass today, but of course we have a lot of other things we can talk about, whether it's early crops or fire blight or pruning your roses, applying a dormant spray fungicide right now. Great time. Also a really good time to fertilize your lawn and get things going there. Phone numbers are 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868 if you'd like to join us here on the Garden Guide. Bill, who is our first caller?
We have Catherine calling in from Idaho this morning.
Good morning, Catherine. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm doing just fine.
Great.
We have a garden spot that we're not going to be using this year, and I don't want to have to go spray it every few weeks.
Yes.
Is there a weed killer and a pre-emergent at the same time?
There sure is. There is. And the great thing about using a pre-emergent in that area is if we want to keep it fallow, we don't want anything growing in there necessarily, we can spray it with a combination herbicide pre-emergent. My favorite would be Kills-All Extended. And it has the Kills-All in it, so it'll kill grasses and weeds. It'll basically kill all that stuff, but it biodegrades out of the soil very quickly. So within 5 to 7 days, it's completely gone out of the soil, so you could plant back in there. But if we put the pre-emergent in there, it's going to stop new seeds from germinating for about 4 months. And so if we apply it now, we'd get April, May, June, July out of it. You might want to do a midsummer application, maybe sometime in June, do the same thing and tidy up some of those few little weeds that decided to sneak in there. And then the pre-emergent would last until October for you at that point.
Okay, now, if it gets on a tree, is that bad for the tree?
Will not hurt the tree at all if you do not hit the leaves. So it has to go in through the green leafy part of the plant. And so you can spray around trees. If it hits the bark or hits the root system, it won't bother it at all, unless there's a big gash in the bark and you've got tissue open, open tissue wound there. You definitely don't want to spray that because it could absorb a little bit that way, but it won't go through the bark, won't be absorbed up through the root system, so you can spray right around desirable plants and not worry about damaging those.
Sounds like a good plan.
Oh, it's
Thank
wonderful.
You very much.
I use it in my patio where I've got some of the burr buttercup, the goat's heads, those evil little spiny weeds.
Oh.
Yeah, and it works great on those. And so I can let those start to germinate. And I saw a bunch last night. Like I was at one of my friend's house, and right in front of his house in his park strip, he had just a bunch of those burr buttercups coming up. And I was like, tomorrow, you're spraying these tomorrow. Otherwise, there's no flip-flops going in your yard.
We have those in our front too, and I hadn't even thought of spraying there.
Yes. So we got great temperatures, little weed-free zone. We'll take those out right now before they start blooming. Get them before they bloom, because once they bloom, even if you spray them and kill them, it seems like they still produce those seed heads and problems. So now is the time to get after this. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Catherine. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
All right. Phone lines are open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. So still out there, Doug?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, very good. Good. Didn't want to lose you in the interim there. So hopefully someone will come in. Will call in with a little grass question for you, Doug. That would be nice.
Well, in the interim, we can tell people that they shouldn't fear overseeding their lawns, even if there is a cutback in water, because if the conditions are not right, you haven't lost the seed, you haven't lost your investment, and you create what's called a seed bank. And when conditions are right, it might be next fall, it might be, who knows, that seed will germinate and establish. So it's not like, you've got to have traditional optimum conditions to germinate the seed. It'll lay there and pop when it feels safe to do so.
Right. And we have a lot of excuse me, a lot of homeowners coming in right now that want to overseed. But best time of year, at least for me, has always been midsummer when it's a little bit warmer. You get a little warmer soil temperatures, and boy, I can get that grass to come up in just 5 to 7 days. It just comes up so quickly when the temperatures are a little bit warmer. And that's what we did when we killed that section of our grass out. It was about the 10th of July we planted, and it was up in 5 days. And by Labor Day, you couldn't tell that grass had ever been killed.
Yep, that's. I always use the analogy of cooking or baking cookies. If you put the dough in when the temperatures are low, it takes a lot longer to bake those cookies. But when the temperatures are up to 350 or so, they cook in a lot faster fashion. And that's the same thing with seed germination. When the soil temperatures are higher, the germination time is lower. And so traditionally, people think, it's 90 degrees or 85 degrees, and
it's too hot
to do anything. And that's not true. It's really not true. If you have access to any water at all, that's like Mark just said, that's a great time to get it to happen faster. And when it happens faster, you get a jump on the weeds. They're not as big of a problem. And in your planting, when you're planting your planting of grass seed, don't be afraid of those summer months.
Yeah. And we didn't water that much when we did it. We were watering for 5 minutes 3 times a day. So we had our sprinklers come on about 9 or 10 o'clock when things kind of started to warm up just a little bit and was starting to dry that grass seed out. And then we'd have it go again about noon or 1. And then we did it again about 4 o'clock for just 5 minutes. So we just kept a little bit of moisture out there during the day. So we weren't watering a lot. I mean, we were only watering. Normally I run my sprinklers for a cycle of 45 minutes. I was only doing 15 minutes a day, between the 3 applications just to keep that little bit of moisture out there. And it was up in 5 days, and we were mowing it just a couple weeks after that. And seriously, by Labor Day, it looked like we'd never killed that grass, and it was just lush and green and beautiful. And then this next spring, which was last year, it greened up first thing, and I had not reset my sprinklers in that one area. And couldn't figure out why the grass was stressing a little bit when we got into May and even June, and finally went and checked my sprinkler, and I hadn't reset it from the year before. So while the rest of the grass was getting 45 minutes of watering, that section was only getting 15 minutes, and it still stayed green, but I could tell it was stressing a little bit. So makes a big difference. We do have some more callers, Doug. So we're going to go to our next caller, and that is Bill.
Yeah, Tom in Providence has a grass seed question for us.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. Here in Providence, they're putting in fiber optic, and they're digging a trench into the people's houses. And so when they do my house, they're going to leave a strip of soil that's in the middle of my lawn.
Yes.
So what should I do?
Bring a sample of your grass in when it really starts to grow and get going, and I can probably identify what varieties of grass you've got in there, and we should be able to match it up pretty well. Doug, any suggestions on like prepping that before he plants, and then how to take care of that?
Well, what he's going to discover is that these people are doing him a great favor, and you'll find that because of the flocculation of that soil, the air porosity of that soil is going to be greatly improved, and it's going to be a nice dark green. It's going to look like a racing stripe on a Mustang. So you might want to consider blending or overseeding your whole lawn area so that it blends in with the strip that they're putting there.
Exactly.
For you.
How old's your grass, Tom?
It's really old. It
Okay.
hasn't been overseeded in over 10 years.
So Doug's absolutely right. It's going to stand out in that section, and blending that in would be great. Doug, would you recommend maybe aeration before planting, or just prepping that area?
Oh, no, aerification would be a great time, but as I prefaced my answer, these people have done you a great service, and not only with the fiber optics, but you might want to consider, this would be, you just said that your lawn is very old, as which most lawns in Utah are, and you might want to consider, I don't know how big of a lawn you have, but you might want to consider changing your lawn to something that's more drought tolerant for future defense against what Mother Nature gives us, or the politicians.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an opportunity for you. But if you do want to just maintain the type of grass that you have, bring it in and have Mark identify it. But you'll need to, kind of like a dent in a car, you're going to have to repaint the whole sidewall, if you will, if you want to make sure that dent doesn't stand out.
Yeah. Did you have water restrictions last year, Tom, in Providence?
Yeah, I think we did. We had to do it every certain day or something like that.
Yeah. So incorporating some more drought-tolerant grasses in there wouldn't be a bad idea, and it really does help when you're only able to water once a week. Boy, we had a lot of people that were very fortunate to have newer varieties of grass in their lawns last year, and they were able to keep their lawns relatively green despite minimal water applications in 100-degree temperatures. So.
Yeah, well, I didn't water it enough to keep it green. It turned brown.
But it comes back.
Well, yeah, it's nice and green now.
Oh yeah, it comes back. So I mean, grass goes dormant, then comes back. So I hope that helps answer your question, Tom.
That's very good. Thank you very much.
Thanks for calling this morning. You have a wonderful weekend.
Okay, you too.
All right. Okay, Bill, we've got another caller on the line. Or do we need to take a break at the
why don't we take just a little bit of a break? And Marilyn, hang on. We'll get to you first up on the other side.
"30 minutes after the hour, I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News Update. It's brought to you by Roof Rescue. We need to do better paying attention to pedestrians walking in crosswalks. That was the message from the Logan City Police Department Tuesday afternoon during a crosswalk sting that was held at 400 East, 10th North. In the last 6 weeks, police have responded to 5 personal injury accidents where a pedestrian was hit while walking in a crosswalk. 2 of those calls occurred on the same day. Logan City Police Assistant Chief Jeff Simmons said the problem appears to be that motorists are not paying attention. They're disregarding crosswalk signs and not yielding to people as they cross the street.
Why we do those crosswalk stings is to promote safety, to educate people. We advertise it widely so that people will understand and know that this is going on, but more for education. It's not about tickets or warnings, although we do issue a lot of warnings and some citations during these stings, but it's more about getting people to understand that they have to yield to pedestrians and crosswalks.
During the 4 hours, officers conducted 116 stops. 73 drivers were given warnings and educated about yielding for pedestrians. 29 others were given tickets because they were recorded blatantly disregarding the officers in the roadway, and 14 more drivers were given tickets for texting while driving or expired registrations. Meanwhile, the pilots of that Delta flight from Salt Lake to Washington, D.C. decided to bring their jet down in Denver after the cockpit windshield shattered above 30,000 feet. The crew repeatedly told the nearly 200 passengers to remain calm until they landed. A photo of the windshield taken by a passenger showed the glass was lined with cracks but did not fall from its frame. Well, looking at a really nice weather forecast as we're going to enjoy mostly sunny skies. Temperatures staying in the high 50s, low 60s. Will Feel Right for KVNU News.
From ABC Sports, I'm Mark Remillard. Last night's women's Final Four match between UConn and Stanford was a closely contested contest. Stanford cut an 8-point UConn lead down to 2 with less than 2 minutes to play, but the Huskies held on and dethroned the defending champs.
Beckers comes up with a steal, all the way in for 2.
The call on ESPN, Paige Beckers scored 14 points in the Huskies' 63-58 victory. In Sunday's championship game, UConn will face South Carolina, which defeated Louisville 72-59. The Huskies are 11-0 in the national title game in program history. Meanwhile, in the NBA, Lakers star Anthony Davis returned to the lineup on Friday after a 6-week injury absence, but the Lake Show fell to the Pelicans 114-111, putting them 2 games back from the Spurs to lock a spot in the play-in tournament. The Lakers only have 5 games left to turn things around and potentially extend their season. This is ABC.
Hi everyone, it's Congressman Blake Moore here. My team and I have been working hard to counter Vladimir Putin's war against Ukraine and doing all we can to hold Russia accountable. I've been leveraging my position on the House Armed Services Committee to support lethal aid for Ukraine. I voted to bolster security assistance, improve our cyber capabilities to counter Russia, and support the operations of U.S. troops in Europe. But more must be done, and I am co-sponsoring legislation to impose heavier sanctions on the Russian oligarchy and banks and remove Russia from the UN Security Council. In my role as the lead Republican on the House Natural Resources Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee, I have been working on legislation to enhance American energy production. I joined my congressional colleagues in a bipartisan vote to suspend purchases of Russian oil, and I believe we must do more to impose secondary sanctions on Russian energy imports, replace Russian energy sources with American energy, and approve permits and pipelines to greenlight American exports. Our team is working hard to assist Americans and Ukrainians fleeing attacks. If we can be of help to you or someone you know, please call my Ogden office at 801-625-0107 or visit our website at blakemore.house.gov. Paid for by official funds authorized by the U.S. House of Representatives.
Spring has sprung, and Cox Honeyland in South Logan has a whole new assortment of gifts and decor for your home. The buyers at Cox Honeyland brought in several new items to brighten up your life, so stop in today. It's time to add to your food storage, and local Cache Valley honey is a must. Refill your containers for $3 per pound or buy a 1-gallon bucket for $41. While there, grab some of their famous fudge. Cox Honeyland and Gifts, 1780 South Highway 89, Logan. Hurry, this sale ends soon.
It's the Garden Guide on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Good morning and welcome back to the Garden Guide. This is Mark Anderson with Anderson Seed and Garden. My special guest today is Doug Washburn with Agrono-Tec Seed, and Bill's running the boards over here like the masterful skills that he has. So
hopefully I'm not running them and wearing them out.
Yes, and scaring off the callers. Please
That's right. Yeah.
Please don't scare off the callers.
Try not to do that.
So we're back. We're going to be talking gardening. We're going to be talking grass and grass seed and how to rejuvenate your lawn and which grass seed varieties are best for our area. And we can also talk about pruning roses, which is a great weekend to start pruning your roses. We've got the bare root sale going on at Anderson's and a lot of fertilization going on. Everyone's trying to get their lawns kind of perked up after winter and after a stressful summer last year. Great time to fertilize your lawn. Good time to go after some of those weeds that have snuck into your lawn. And after you control those weeds, it's an excellent time to plant some grass to take the place of those weeds so you don't have more weeds coming back in their place. So it's a good way to do that. So fire blight control going on right now. And a lot of homeowners are spraying their fruit trees with a dormant spray fungicide combination to try and control mildew and fire blight and cranium blight, shot hole fungus, things that have wintered over from last year, as well as insects with that dormant spray. Great time to do that before the trees really start to bloom and leaf out. And I think we've got probably 2 weeks before that happens. That would be my estimate. We're going to see leaves popping out in the trees here in about 10 days to 2 weeks. So be prepared. And we do have a caller on the line still.
Yes, she has hung on
Marilyn.
through the break. Marilyn from Lewiston.
Thanks for hanging on, Marilyn. Welcome to the Garden Guide.
You're certainly welcome. I have a question. I needed to prune my grapevines last fall, and for whatever the reasons, I didn't get it done.
Yes.
And I want to know if I can still do that.
Absolutely. Spring is a great time to prune grapes. In fact, I wait as late as possible sometimes to do the grapes because it's so hard to tell where they're dead and where they're still alive because they all look the same. And so usually I'll wait for a little bit of growth to start coming out on the grapes. And then depending on which kind of grapes you've got, most of the grapes will produce fruit on last year's growth. And so we're always pruning them to encourage some new growth this year, but not taking out too much of last year's growth to affect your fruit production. So I've got some really great information on pruning at the store and also on our website that will walk you through that process if you need a little help. So,
Okay, I have then another question. What I wanted to do was trim them down severely because they have grown up into my trees, and I have a difficult time reaching 80 feet or 20 feet or whatever to pick the grapes. So I wanted to cut them down, clear down to like 4 feet off the ground. Would that be too much?
Nope, not too much. Usually we will try and train our grapes to grow horizontally on a fence or a wire or something at about 3 feet, and then again at about 5 feet. So you can get like growth in both directions at those two increments, those two levels, and get a lot of production off your grapes. If they get too tall, though, you're right. It's like you can't get up there and pick. It's very inconvenient. You could take those back down to 4 or 5 feet without any trouble.
Okay, thank you very much.
You are so welcome. Great time to fertilize them after you're done pruning. So usually with raspberries, we're pruning in the spring. Grapes, we're pruning in the spring. Excellent time to give them a little fertilizer, maybe something with some sulfur and some iron in there as well, too, because the grapes tend to be very iron chlorotic, just like the raspberries do. So a little fertilizer with some good chelated iron would be excellent right now as well, too, Marilyn.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for calling this morning, and have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
All right, thanks. All right, our phone lines are open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. And we'd love to have you call in and join us here on the Garden Guide with any questions or comments. And Doug, you still hanging in there?
I'm hanging in there. It's great to hear those questions.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And I mentioned just a moment ago, after you get your weeds under control, we're seeing a lot of weeds popping up right now. So morning glory, dandelions, burr buttercup, those little goat heads, they're popping up all over the place, even in some people's lawns. Great time to overseed right after you get those weeds under control.
Yes, that's something that's often overlooked, is that if a weed is there and you eliminate the weed, you've got an empty space, and either you or nature is going to fill that empty space. So it's best that if you have an empty space, cover it in with some seed and get what you want.
Yeah. We've probably got to remind all of our listeners that if you do want to overseed this spring, make sure you don't use a pre-emergent on your lawn. Otherwise, it's going to stop your grass seed from coming up. So if we're trying to control crabgrass in our lawns, and crabgrass doesn't show up until July or August here in Cache Valley, so it shows up later. So if you've got grass in your lawn right now you're trying to control, you think it's crabgrass, it's probably a tall fescue or a pasture grass, orchard grass of some sort that has snuck into your lawn, because we've all built our homes in old pastures, and crabgrass preventer is not going to help with that. But getting some new grass in there would definitely would. And so I had a gentleman in yesterday, a good friend of mine. He is ready to overseed. He's got some spots that are thinning out a little bit under some of his heavy, dense trees. And so we talked about some different varieties to put in there. And he's going to overseed, but he made sure to contact his lawn care company and told them just to fertilize and not use a pre-emergent, because he's going to put seed out here in the next couple of weeks. And that would be critical that we make sure and not apply a pre-emergent if we're going to overseed.
Exactly. I had a comment the other day with a lawn care company, and we were talking about crabgrass control, and we were just saying, where does most of the crabgrass show up in the lawn? it's along the edges, along sidewalks and curbs where the temperature is a little higher and the radiant heat is a little higher, and it's very rare that it's out there in the middle of the lawn. So perhaps using a contact versus a pre-emergent to control crabgrass would be a consideration. And then the other thing that people need to know is that perennial ryegrass, the Everest 3000 that you sell, puts out a toxin that controls crabgrass. They don't get along very well, and so over the evolution of time, perennial ryegrass has developed a toxin that pushes the crabgrass away. So in and of itself, it acts as a herbicide, if you will, to control crabgrass.
That's great. I did not know that because I knew that the Everest 3000, that perennial rye blend, will really help with insects and diseases because it does the same thing for those. But I didn't know about the crabgrass.
Yeah, it's called the aleotrophic effect, and if you'll Google that or whatever, it'll tell you that perennial ryegrass puts out this toxin that it's kind of similar to what pine trees do. They don't like anything in their space. So those pine needles put out that resin, and it's kind of barren under a lot of those pine trees.
Yes, it kind of sterilizes the soil with the tannins so that nothing will grow. So, but I'm super, super happy with my incorporation of the perennial ryegrasses into our lawn. It just is so much greener. And it greens up earlier, and it stays green longer, and it doesn't need as much water. And it's soft like the Kentucky bluegrass too, which is a great side effect. So
so there's more clubs in the bag. If you're just playing golf with a driver, it's kind of screws up your putting game. But we've got a lot of different clubs in the bag when it comes to grass seed selection and grass varieties and stuff. So to solve a lot of these problems, some are social, some are nature-oriented, how you're going to use your lawn. If you've got a dog, you need a lawn that's more resilient to urine and stuff, and we certainly have varieties that will take more pet urine.
Yep.
And there's nothing that says that you got to use the same grass on all four sides of the house. If you've got a shaded area, if you've got a sunny area, that takes a different grass.
Yeah, and I've got 4 different kinds of grass in my yard. One, so because there's people that like to come and look at it from time to time and see what the different grasses look like. But we have a lot of different conditions at my house as well too. So hey, we've got two callers on the line, Doug. So let's go out. Let's go out to one of those callers. Bill.
First up, Curtis calling in from Clarkston this morning.
Good morning, Curtis. Welcome to the Garden Guide.
Yeah, morning. Have a question for both of you. Have a big hash tree in my backyard, and so I have trouble with the shade. But on the west side, I have a privacy fence. On the south side, I have snowball bushes. On the north side, I have an apple tree. So it basically becomes a 3-sided room in the summer months. And I like keeping grass under it for the grandkids and high traffic area. I did try your Marks mix a few years ago, and I don't know if I didn't get it worked in good enough, but it's pretty blotchy. And so I need some recommendations there, what I can do for a definitely shaded area.
Yeah, what's the best shady grass, Doug?
Well, that Marks mix is a good shade tolerant grass. The finer fescues are a little more shade tolerant than the tall fescues, so I would say, the Marks mix is made up of perennial rye and tall fescue, both of which are non-creeping, non-invasive type grasses. So I would suggest that he put some more Mark's mix out there. That would be a good choice, or the second choice would be, because that would blend in with what he's got a little better, but fine fescue, 100% fine fescue like the Slope Saver, or a creeping red fescue, something like that would be a second choice.
And we talked about this a little bit last fall, where you've got really shady, dense shade areas. It's a good idea to overseed every year, just get some new grass growing in there. But then we talked about mowing closer to get the grass to spread out horizontally, so mowing closer underneath there. Do you remember that conversation, Doug?
Yeah. You might have been with another person there, but I keep it, or it gets thin enough in the summer. I have a hard time knowing where I've mowed.
Yes.
In that shaded area. So it's really, really thin.
So it wouldn't hurt to put a little bit of topsoil out there just to have a new place to get that grass seed to germinate in there. Apply your Mark's mix again, and in those really dense, shady locations, the grass will just start to thin out over time. And so adding a little bit of new grass every year will really make a big difference. And then when you're mowing, drop your mower down closer, because underneath those trees where it is shady, it doesn't dry out as quickly, and we can mow closer to get the grass to spread horizontally, where if you leave your grass taller, you get a deeper root system. And so by adjusting your mower blade, by incorporating some new grasses in there and overseeding each year, that should really help fill some of those spots in. Curtis.
And how rough do I want to get? I'm wondering if I didn't get rough enough when I put the seed down with a rake or a harrow or something to really rough up the soil to give it some places to seed in better.
Yeah, to get that going. What were you going to say, Doug?
Yeah, seed-to-soil contact is very important. But, again, those people who do have high shaded areas, if you plant the seed sooner than later before the trees leaf out, that's going to give the seed a chance to get a jump start without the abundance of shade. So you folks out there who are like this person, get your seed planted early before the leaves come out on the trees abundantly, and that'll help things along too.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Did you have another question, Curtis, or was that the one?
Yeah, I mentioned the privacy fence, Green Giant. I remember you saying something about that last year. Tell me a little bit about that plant, how high and how much space it needs.
So Green Giant arborvitae is a very quick grower. It can grow up to 3 feet a year, which is unusual for most evergreens. So it's a really quick growing evergreen. It gets fairly dense and probably 4 to 5 feet wide, and in our area probably about 15 feet tall, and it can be sheared. And if you have deer in your neighborhood, they will shear it for you. So just be aware. Yeah.
I put a red cross on it in the fall. I usually have about 30 head of deer in my backyard every night.
I have a couple in front of my house, and the deer nibble on them every year, but they grow back so quickly. We have not had a big problem with it, and so don't count it out yet. And they can only reach up so high. So for privacy, it really does a great job from that 5 foot up height, and then you can put a little bit of repellent or wrap them or whatever you need to in the fall just to keep the deer off of them. But we really have not had a problem with the deer really doing a lot of damage on those because they recover so quickly. So.
Okay, and I'd be fine with having a fence there for a year or two to get them started.
To get them going, yeah.
Just put up some of the wire panels.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're so welcome. Thanks for calling, Curtis. Have a great weekend. Okay, we've got another caller, Bill.
Yes, we have Tom in Mendon.
Good morning, Tom. Welcome to the Garden Guide.
Morning. Hey, I took a large blue spruce last year, 40-year-old tree, and it had, probably a foot of pine needles underneath it when I got it pulled out of there. In the course of getting it pulled out, I'm down to down to topsoil again, but there's still a lot of pine needles mixed in with the topsoil.
Yes.
Am I going to have a problem getting some bluegrass started in there to match my lawn?
A little bit right off the bat, because over time those needles have a tannin in there that kind of sterilizes the soil, keeps other things from growing around the tree, but we can break that down. So I would recommend you use some humate out there. The humic product from Natural Guard is my favorite one, and we want to apply that just like a fertilizer. Apply that and kind of work it into the soil. Wouldn't hurt to even bring a little bit of topsoil in and kind of introduce some new soil where it's got some more natural bacteria and biology in there that would help break that stuff down a little bit quicker, but kind of work that in, and hopefully we can break that down. And it might take a year or two to really get the grass to take off in there, but anything we can do to break that layer of tannins down. The humate, it is 500,000. Yeah, it's 500,000-year-old fossilized compost. It looks like coal. It's black, and I use it on my lawn. I put it into my vegetable garden because it's full of minerals and micronutrients and a lot of natural plant growth regulators like humic and fulvic acids in there, and so it'll decompose a lot of organic matter very quickly, and it will really help break those tannins down so that we can get stuff to grow in there. So an application right now would be great. Application maybe in 6 weeks. I mean, just whatever we can do to speed up the decomposition of the
and as far
tannins.
as planting the seed, right now,
whenever you can prep it and get it ready to go, you could start planting.
Okay. Yeah, I can get it probably done now.
Awesome.
I appreciate the info. Thanks.
You're so welcome, Tom. Good luck with that location.
Yep.
Correct.
Bye.
All right. And is that the last of our callers? All right. We've got 5 minutes left, Doug. 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Well,
I was gonna ask new varieties of grass seed that might be of interest to our listeners. Anything that's going to be gorgeous, dark green, but use much less water and less, take more abuse. Have fewer insect and disease issues. What would you suggest?
Well, I really do think that. For the normal homeowner that looks at a lawn as a great substitute for weeds and dust problems, I think a good grass to go to is the turf-type tall fescues, and you can obviously we mix that with some perennial ryegrass to come up with Mark's mix, and that's a really good lawn for drought tolerance and insect resistance, genetic color. It's non-invasive. You don't really have to put a concrete border around it to keep it from coming into the living room and invading the family space. It has good salt tolerance, so those places that do have salt issues, I don't know if that's an abundant problem up in Logan, but if we have to cut back on water, you are going to start seeing some salt rising to the root level of a lot of plants, and it's going to show up on the trees and shrubs and turf in the future because we've had a luxury of abundance of water, and that's pushed the salt into the lower soil profile, but as we back off on our water, we're going to see the salts rising to the root levels, and that's going to, like I said, show itself in plant damage. So, we need to prepare for the inevitable, and that's plants that use less water and more salt tolerant, and so the turf type tall fescues, perennial ryegrasses fit that bill.
Yeah, they're going to be great. We got just about a minute left, Doug. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us on the show, and thanks for your knowledge and expertise on grass, and really appreciate you being here with us today.
Well, thank you very much, Mark, and let's do it again maybe during the summer when people are suffering some turf damage.
There we go. Hey, that sounds great. So just a reminder, great time to be outside, out in the garden planting spring crops, early crops. Get some planted: peas, spinach, lettuce, radishes, onions. Bare root sales going on at Anderson Seed and Garden right now, so we've got some great bare root plants to get transplanted into your yard. Dorman spray and fire blight control. Definitely want to be on top of that, and it's a great time to get after weeds in your lawn. Weed-free zone's my go-to. So thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week with another edition of the Garden Guide.
KVNU Logan, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.